Hi there, my name's Joseph Fletcher. I'm one of the developers for CUSP, and today I'm going to be taking you through the CUSP UI. Straight away, you can see that you're greeted with the Projects menu, and from here you can select one of the many active projects which you have. At the moment, we have Cardiff University and Reading Station, and there are also a few locked projects which you might have to access in the future. I'm going to select Cardiff University so that we can access the project through the CUSP UI. When trying to select a project, I'm immediately greeted with a login screen. This requires a username and password and is authenticated through Keycloak. You can configure this however you would like server-side. Once I've logged in, you can see the CUSP UI starts to focus on the current project. In this case, that's Cardiff University. The buildings will start to load in from the CUSP Semantic Data Store, which is visible in the progress bar at the bottom right of the screen. Once all of the buildings have loaded in, you can interact with the viewer by using the mouse. Hold the left mouse button while moving around to pan around in space. Use the scroll wheel or the right mouse button to zoom in and out of the current position. Hold the control key while attempting to pan around will orbit around the current position. Combining these controls will allow you to navigate the viewer with ease. At the top of the screen, you can see the main taskbar, where you can select between trends, events, predictions, optimizations, actuations, and compositions. The left taskbar has two persistent components. These are the directory and the layers components. The directory allows you to select entities based on their relative position within the semantic ontology. If an entity has a child element, you will see a large plus next to the entity's name. Upon clicking this plus, it will expand and you can view all of the children elements for this entity. Conversely, clicking the minus button will collapse this entity. At the top of the pane, there are a few navigation buttons which will help navigate through the directory. The Expand All button does exactly what it says. It expands all of the entities so that all the children are visible. Collapsing all collapses them, and the plus and minus buttons to the side increases or decreases the scale to be able to view more or less on screen. Now let's have a look at the Layers tab. Clicking on one of the multi-polygon models allows you to show or hide these low-resolution models on the screen. The high-resolution models are broken down into buildings, blocks, floors, zones, and spaces. Only one of these can be visible at any period. At the spaces level, you can show or hide specific spaces. Clicking on an entity within the main viewer will select this entity. Selecting an entity can also be performed via clicking on its name within the directory. When an entity is selected, in the top right-hand corner, click the Information button to see more information about the currently selected building. Let's have a look at generating some graphs. To generate a graph, an entity must first be selected. While the Trends tab is selected, click on the Create Graphs component in the sidebar. A form will then be displayed, with various parameters which will affect the outcome of your graph. Selecting the data type is the data stream from the current entity you have selected. This could be parameters such as temperature. The three checkboxes below allow you to affect the kinds of data coming from this entity. The actual data is the live data coming from that building. The simulated data are simulations based on scenarios which we'll cover later, and the predicted data streams are predictions based off the current live data streams. These allow you to predict in the future what the values would be for the currently selected entity. Then you can select the start and end date for the query. Only data between these two times will be shown on your created graph. When you're satisfied with your criteria, click the Generate Graph button and it will generate a graph on the right pane. You can increase the size of this graph pane by clicking the Maximize button in the top right-hand corner. The Graphs component allows you to dynamically interact with the graph. You can choose to show or hide data streams by selecting their name at the bottom of the pane. You can home in on specific areas within the graph by selecting an area with the left mouse button. You can also achieve this by scrolling the timeline at the bottom. Click the blue minus button in the top right hand corner to reset the view to its default. Hovering over the graph with the mouse will show the data points at the current X value. When zoomed in, these data points will be visible as small circles. Selecting an entity with multiple child elements allows you to create a graph with disaggregated data. This allows you to see the contributions of each child entity to the parent entity for the currently selected data type. As with previously selected graphs, you can enable or disable these lines by clicking them at the bottom. Now let's have a look at running an Energy Plus simulation. To start a simulation, have the Trends tab selected at the top and click the Create Simulation component on the left taskbar. When this is selected, you'll be able to choose between different stimulus to select for the output of your simulation. In future, you will be able to modify parameters for your simulation. Running a simulation takes time, as it has to simulate 365 days of energy usage. Once the process is done, you will see the results displayed directly below. Now let's have a look at how you can upload an IFC file to the ontology. First, click the Composition tab at the top, and then click on the IFC Uploader component. Once this is selected, there are various parameters you have to fill out to upload your entity. The building name is what it will be called within the ontology. The parent name is the entity it belongs to. The latitude and longitude values should be the center coordinate of your model. You can either enter these values manually or right-click on the viewer to automatically update these values. You can also add a rotation to your model. If your IFC file is modelled relative to north, you can keep this as 0. You then select the IFC file from your local files and click Upload to start the transfer process. Once the upload is complete, the system will then process your IFC file and convert them into 3D models. It will automatically also isolate spaces and floors within your IFC file, which you can select. Now let's have a look at uploading an asset to an entity. While the Composition tab is selected, click the Asset Uploader component. From here, you can select the file type, which is the file extension, and the entity you would like to attach the file to. You then also choose the file to upload. You then click the Upload button to start the upload process. Once the upload is complete, you will then be able to see the file attached to your entity, which you can download by clicking in the information pane.